Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township Committee meeting for January 16th, 2020. Greg, has adequate notice been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record and Ed Barmakian on January 3rd, 2020. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 3rd, 2020, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 3rd, 2020.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco? Mrs. Schwartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Here. Thank you, Greg. Our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Greg, could you read? What's that? Approval of the agenda, excuse me. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
In a second?
second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Greg, could you?
Yes, it's delightfully short. We have Resolution 2020-42, payment of bills, 2020-43, appointing Open Space Committee member, and 2020-44, appointing a police chaplain.
Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Any discussion? It's nice to have a chaplain appointed, and the open space appointment fills a vacancy there, so they're fully staffed. So that's two nice nice appointments of people who are going to be doing a great job for the township. So thank you to them. Greg, can I have a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
I can make a quick pitch.
Okay.
Since we just appointed someone to the Open Space Committee, we do still have 3 openings on the Colony Pool Committee. So if anybody wants to help improve Colony Pool and be involved in programs and services at Colony Pool, please send in an email, fill out a leadership form, and be considered to join the Colony Pool Committee.
Thank you. And that brings us to the main item on our agenda, which is a planning session on goals and objectives for 2020. Maybe just a quick word of explanation for our audience here and on TV. But first, maybe a quick comment on what's not on the agenda tonight would be affordable housing. As we said at our last meeting, that we expect to have more to report at the end of the month at our January 30th meeting. But at the moment, we have a number of studies and reports in the works, and we're responding to the public request to gather more data and before we proceed, and that's where we are now. I guess the one exception to that is that we did file our motion with the judge to ask for the extension, and that is on our website. If you go to the affordable housing page on our website, they are the court actions number 20 through 26, and it explains what we've been doing historically, coming really up until the present, and why we are asking to the judge that, as a recognition of our good faith efforts, that it is a reasonable request that we ask for a little bit more time to get the best decision that we can on that subject. So if you are looking for the latest update on that, please go to our home page, our affordable housing page on our website. Which brings us to the purpose of tonight's meeting, which is really a workshop meeting to talk about goals and objectives for 2020. I think that the reasoning for this is really pretty clear. I think the timing of it is excellent with a new township administrator. I think that the timing is great to get this formalized, to help him put his priorities and focus on the issues that we as a township committee feel are top priority. And, I think that the intent is that it recognizes a lot of the things that we have been doing and maybe some things that we haven't been doing, but it recognizes them and it formalizes them a little bit and gets them down so that future township committees can have really a better starting point to work from, and that it becomes really a tool for our budget preparation. So hopefully we'll be seeing some of these reflected in our budget that's going to be, that's currently under preparation for the year 2020, but I think that the goal is that more and more of them will be rolled out and incorporated into the future budgets. So with that being said, I think we all have a printout here of the goals and objectives, a draft version of it. Again, the purpose of the draft really was as talking points. There's nothing about this list that's cast in stone. It's kind of an amorphous discussion, and the thinking is that that helps to have this as a starting point. So why don't we start and try to maybe just one more word. I think that just looking ahead later on this evening, we're not taking any action tonight on these goals and objectives. Really, we're discussing them. We're entertaining any comments from the audience on their thoughts about them. And I think that the idea is that we advance the ball and get these into pretty good shape by the end of tonight, but that the goal would be that at our next meeting on the 30th, that we really complete the project and accept them as our goals and objectives, and really have them there for our administrator to recognize and help him report back to us and again, put his efforts where we want them to. So,
And just a question. Bob, did you send out the August 14th version of the goals and objectives to everybody?
The answer is no. I gave copies to our newest committee members, but I did not send them out to the other committee members who already had them. So.
Okay, I printed a copy out. I don't know if anybody brought those along. We had an effort in 2019 to put together goals and objectives, and as Bob moved into his role, and we started in June, we never got to finish it, so this is kind of a restart of that, but we do have a whole list, the last one dated August 14th, of a whole bunch of short-term, long-term, midterm goals and objectives too, that we can add into this discussion.
do you want to take it away, Tracy, and start with the first one?
Before we actually get into the meat and bones of this, as I mentioned prior to us actually starting the meeting, I think that we all need to be so cognizant of the fact that we have been involved successfully in doing these things for a long time. And having goals and objectives is critical, I think, to both short-term and long-term planning. Obviously, that's why we're here. But when your goal is to manage the township needs in a fiscally responsible manner, it almost seems as though this is a new idea. This is absolutely the furthest thing from a new idea. Our goal should be to continue managing the township in a fiscally responsible manner, or to however you'd want to word it. But almost each one of these goals almost seems like an indictment, like this is a great new idea. So I would consider just making sure we understand that while we have goals to continue successfully managing our township, these are all great things to do, but it's not our first go-round.
Okay, good point. And let the record show. Okay, goal number 1, manage the township needs in a fiscally responsible manner, or continue to manage the township's needs in a fiscally responsible manner.
say that, I would say that. Well, I think our overarching goal is managing the township in a fiscally responsible manner. Whether you feel like that has been done or whether you feel like it hasn't been done, the goal is manage.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any kind of a judgment being made in that. I think it's a
It's a goal statement.
laudatory thing to try to do, and you know, there's no reflection on it not having been done by our predecessors. I think that you know, the good things about the township, and we should recognize the people who have passed the baton to us. So no quarrel there. But you know, I think that the idea really is to give it some structure and some formalization. I think that you know, we have transitioned from one administrator to another. I think everybody has a different style. I think that you'll see some of these objectives under this goal of this fiscal responsible goal here is an attempt to try to add some of that structure to the budgeting process, so that you know, that we don't end up at the end of the budget process saying, you know, gee, this would have been great if we did something a little different, and then a year passes, and if it's not formalized in that year, then the same gap is there a year later. So this is an attempt really to try to formalize this and get our thoughts down on what we would like to see, and then you know, recognizing that it's probably not going to happen overnight. This is something that is a work in progress. Objective A, create and maintain a multi-year financial plan to track both current and anticipated expenses to better manage the tax impact to our residents. And I think it's kind of coupled with B, which is the same thing, which is the capital plan. You know, I think the capital plan part of it has been on kind of been a priority for many of us, that you know, looking for a little better structure and scheduling and anticipating of what those big nuts might be that are out there and facing us. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the township does have a multi-year capital plan. We've always had one, but what we need to do, and my predecessor did a good job with highlighting the capital plan, but we've reached the delta where we have some aging equipment, and we need to look at that, and we need to start to get some financing in place for the items that have been in past capital plans and are going to be in the readjusted capital plan for 2020. As an example, we have our water pollution control facility, and it's been in the capital plan that we have to replace equipment, and there's some I&I issues, inflow and infiltration issues that need to be taken care of. My first day here, there was a meeting about that, actually the first morning right after the breakfast, but that the welcoming breakfast that we had to talk about that. So we're reaching the point where there's not replacement parts that are made for some of the equipment that's there. It's other equipment's being cannibalized to keep it open. So as we've now reached the point where we've got to look at that capital plan and then put dollars in there, and look to where we can get the financing for that. So that part of that financing would be from the New Jersey Infrastructure Trust Fund, and so that's something that's critical. That we've got a capital plan, but now now we're going to be putting dates and dollars together because we're reaching the point where we can't get spare parts.
Where is the capital plan, Bob?
The capital plan is part of the capital budget, so it's part of it is called the capital plan, and then it goes out 1 through 5 years. And what we want to do is we want to be able to go out 10 years with our capital plan, and then do the financial analysis to go out 40 years, because some of those expenses, some of the pieces of equipment will last that long, but we need to figure out what's going to be the amortized cost for them.
What else is on the capital plan?
It's everything from road paving to the work that's projected for the sewer utility, for our water treatment plant, to looking down the road to replacing equipment for the DPW, and then replacing fire apparatus, things of that nature.
So is there any infrastructure, or this building, or the police building, or the DPW buildings, or capital asset planning?
No, that wasn't on the previous plan, but there are items that will have to be added to that. In an old capital plan, there had been an assessment of this building, and that goes back to 2008, when my predecessor had talked to the then Township Committee, and they had done a study of what needed to be done to upgrade this building. And then, like other plans, it sat on the shelf for a while. Yes. But I keep moving my head, so sorry. For February, I'll use my Charlton Heston voice. I'll start with that.
So I think the goal here is to, and Bob, in your past experience, do you do like what's due next year, 5 years, 10 years? You said you want to go out 40 years.
Yes, we need to look, when you look at A, and B, they are items. You tie the capital plan to how much will those projected improvements cost? What do we need to do, and then where do we anticipate getting the funds for that? And so that way it makes the decision of the Township Committee easier when they do their evaluation. But yes, things cost more, but some pieces of equipment also will last longer than 5 years. In the past, the state has said that your capital budget, should be 5 years, but realistically, we need to look out longer, because it will cost us more to finance some of the equipment than just 5 years.
Bob, recognizing that we're well along on the budget preparation for this year, what do you envision in the way of a capital plan would be doable for this 2020 budget, and how much of it should we look for, to be coming into play for next year's 2021 budget?
The capital plan, you will have a succinct capital plan for 2020, because there are things that are already in the hopper. We know we're going to be paving roads. We know that there are some drainage issues that have to be dealt with. We will be purchasing equipment for the police department. There's a brush truck that's on the way for the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department, so that's already been committed to. So those items are already in process, and that'll be underway. The capital plan will be more robust in 2021 and beyond, because we are looking to line up financing for the work that has to be done at the wastewater treatment plant. So that will be something that will be either come in at the end of 2020, but probably 2021. So this year, we're going to be looking at what was agreed to in 2019 for 2020. we'll add a couple of things for the Township Committee's consideration, but basically the capital plan will focus on 2021 and beyond, because our a municipality is like a super tanker. You can't, you've got things in progress, you need to finish up projects, and you've got planning that goes on, but we're going to do some more precise analysis, and there are realistically there are changes that need to be made to the capital plan. The Township Committee in 2018 approved a settlement for affordable housing. We have to factor some of those capital costs into the capital plan.
Okay.
Any discussion on the first two?
Are you going through all the bullets for this goal?
It's just,
I'd
just an
be
open
willing to
discussion.
take it where
Okay.
anybody wants to go.
Okay,
This is a
so-
workshop kind of discussion, so
Then, if I may.
please.
Well, first, I just want to thank everybody that participated in this. This is, especially as a newcomer to the committee, it's a nice roadmap that tells us where we're going, and I think it's a wonderful addition to the process. Or I guess it started back in August of last year, so I think this is great. With respect to the managing the township's needs in a fiscally responsible manner, I don't know if it belongs here or in communications, but I've said over and over, and Bob's, I'm just going to go ahead and give my feedback for everything at this point.
Do you
We're
want to
gonna
stay,
stick on the first goal.
stick with the
Oh,
one
I
for
stick
the
with
moment?
first goal? Okay, then I think I'm set. The only other thing, in terms of information, providing information, I would love to see, maybe not revenue projections, but revenue drivers, because we know that our expenses are increasing, and we know that our ratables are not growing as rapidly as they were, which will impact our revenue. So it's just information that's needed, and that will play into what the tax rate is. So I think that's just, as we're preparing information that's user-friendly, just factoring in, providing revenue information and drivers and direction and those kinds of things.
I think the user-friendly has been, there is a user-friendly budget on the website. It's not user-friendly. It's a different version of what's input to the state. So if you try and read it, it's very difficult to ascertain. If you look at, I think it was about a year ago, I looked at the budgets for Madison, for Summit, for Chatham Borough, and you could see line by line item what the projects were, what salaries were, what increases were in each department, and it was very easy to digest. It was very easy to look up information. I provided Bob with a copy of a rather snazzy handout that Summit did that's tied into their goals and objectives, and then it provides all the pertinent information. It's about a 4-page handout that talks about capital planning, talks about budget management, talks about the increases and decreases that they're seeing, what the key drivers are in the budget. I'm not sure, I think there'd be a kind of a quantum step for us to get to this. It was a little busy, but it's been a long-held issue, and I had these discussions with Bob last year as part of the Finance Committee, that there's a real need, and this is, again, not a new idea. It was brought up years ago about changing the way that we present the budget to the public. Going as far back as when I used to write for the newspaper, it became a little bit of a running joke between Tom and I that I would ask for the capital plan, and I would ask for what was underneath the capital budgets. You can go on and look at our budgets for the past several years, and you'll see there's a capital page, and there's just a couple of headlines, but there's no detail. And I think it's very helpful for people to know what the actual capital projects planned are. And so I would hope that in the craziness that is now happening with the state system not working so well, that we could take another step forward into presenting the budget in a different format, more fulsome format, and provide more information, as you said, with our revenue drivers, because we know we've lost revenue this year. Our ratables are not increasing that much this year, or they're actually decreasing this year negligibly, but what the drivers are in the budget I think it's really helpful for people to understand that.
Thank
So
you.
that's a good add.
Any others on those two? C is follow the 30-year debt management plan passed in 2019 and reassess as necessary. This plan states our goal to explore the possibility of becoming debt-free in terms of our long-term debt. The theory is that when you go out to bond, you pay interest for 20 years, 30 years, and you end up paying back half again as much as what you borrowed and benefited from. It's a significant change in the way we have done business, and I think it's something that we need to look at carefully as we roll things out. I don't think it's a aspirational look and to save money, but I think that that's an interesting strategic. It's one line on this plan, but it represents a significant strategic concept. So just we shouldn't overlook that.
Well, when you
If I-
look at the idea of the affordable housing burden that will ultimately fall on Chatham Township within the next 2 years, I think to have an objective of becoming debt-free is almost a farce. Because every time we turn around and talk about what things are going to cost, it's immediately followed by, well, of course, we'll just bond for that, as if that means we don't ever have to pay for it. So perhaps it would take a 30-year debt management plan to get us out of debt for the various things that we're talking about here. But I don't think there should be any the word escapes me, but I don't think that there should be any notion that we could be debt-free anytime soon, based on what we're facing in the next couple of years.
I think that one of the reasons that we follow the debt management plan, and I don't think that given the really unprecedented amount of expenses that we're facing, that we're going to be there anytime soon. But Bob, in doing his analysis, and again, being on the Finance Committee, went through an analysis with our audit partners and found that there were some significant spikes in our interest payments. So that's led to this debt management plan. The spike that's coming up is in 2021.
Or 2022, I think. I'm
Or
not sure.
2022?
2022, yeah.
2022, and Bob, is it still up over $800,000?
I can't answer that at the moment. I'm not trying to evade it. We're just,
And doing a reanalysis of it?
yes.
So Bob had done an analysis looking out over 30 years of our debt and interest payments, and we were looking at hitting these balloon interest payments, which in 2022, at that time was going to be, I think it was close to $900,000. I think it's come down from there, but that's more than our annual capital budget. Our annual capital budget hovers in the 850 range, so that was going to be a big issue hitting us in a couple of years, and the idea was to start to put money towards this so that we have at least some money going towards paying down this big chunk that was coming our way.
Okay.
Well, that's correct, but also looking at what longer-term debt is going to be coming on that or what debt we were going to be also having, so that we would go out for longer-term debt and make sure that our payments were smoothed down, if you will, so that we have enough time to take a look and see how we can manage that in 2022.
Mhm.
Yep. I'd just like to add the debt management plan. That's something that was started by previous township committees, and they wanted to make sure that we articulated the percentage of surplus that would be used in the budget, and that we used it for certain items, so that that going forward, we would be fiscally prudent, and there would be funds for some emergencies. So this 30-year debt management plan is actually a building block on that. It's taking a look at what are our known costs, what are projected costs, and then going out and taking a look out a little further. So this 30-year debt management plan is a logical next step from what the Township Committee had put into effect, and I believe it was 2015 that was done. And then last year the Township Committee adopted this portion of it.
Okay. Next item, maintain our AAA credit rating. And I think this kind of goes right to the heart of what you said, Karen. I mean, we are where we are today because of some.
Right, that's
Some
not
very-
an accident, that we
Yeah.
have a AAA credit rating, that we've had a AAA credit rating. We have been reviewed and re-reviewed and affirmed and reaffirmed, and it's something that we should be very proud of. And it gives us a great deal of leverage when we talk about debt management, because when you look at the importance of a AAA credit rating and the latitude it gives you for financing certain projects, we can look at debt management, but I don't really think it's necessary at this juncture to look at debt elimination. There's nothing dramatically wrong with a municipality using leverage to achieve their long-term goals. And when you are in a fiscally responsible position, as we are, the idea that we are afforded the luxury of funding projects through the debt markets at a very attractive rate, I think is something you can't overlook. I'm a bond geek going back to 1982, and the importance of using the credit markets to finance your projects is absolutely has to be considered. I know that some municipalities are extremely proud of their debt-free status, and I think that's wonderful. Their objectives are different than ours, but for us to be able to access the debt markets is not a scarlet letter.
Well, it certainly is it's a benchmark, and it's a recognition of fiscal stability, and we certainly want to keep that as our goal.
And we are going to have to access the debt market, and what happens is with our AAA credit rating, which was reaffirmed last year, that means that when we do that, we will pay less interest. So that means we will have more ability to do more good. So that means we'll be able to pave more roads or put in more sewer pipe or something of that nature. But that's one of the benefits of the AAA credit rating.
Right. I think that's like apple pie. No one's against that.
No one's against that now.
No, but I wanted to make sure people understood when Committeewoman Schwartz was talking about accessing the debt market, we're doing it for something that's good. And there's the benefit of the AAA credit rating is it costs us less. So.
The next item is discuss the use of trust accounts to ensure funding for future projects. Bob, could you kind of explain that concept a bit?
Sure, there are there are trust accounts that municipalities establish, and the township should be evaluating some of those. These trust accounts allow for municipalities to put funds away for, say, the purchase of snow equipment or something of that nature, so that it cuts across budget years. So you can put money aside in these trust accounts, and they will stay there across budget years or calendar years, and then over time you can build up that trust fund and use it for the purchase of equipment, or the emergency purchases of something that you need if there's a snowstorm. Now, other examples are that you would set up an account so that you would be able to buy emergency apparatus such as fire equipment. If you wanted to do an evaluation, say, should we put some money in a trust account? And then bond some of it, not bond the whole thing? So those would be examples of it. And then other examples of the trust accounts would be for affordable housing. That's another example of a trust account.
So for things like, Bob, we know in a couple of years, we're probably going to have to returf Shunpike Field. It's almost like a savings account, so that we look to offset the cost of borrowing by putting aside money if we're able to follow through with this plan and identify projects that we know are coming down the pike. We can set aside money to help offset our borrowing costs.
That's correct, and if you have travel groups or something like that, part of the fees that they pay can go into that to a fund to replace the synthetic turf field. And then you do an analysis because you want to make sure that you're still building surplus, but you do an analysis so that you're peeling off a portion of whatever that fee is for a specific capital purpose or a specific benefit to the township as a whole.
Thank you, Bob. And then work closely with our audit firm and financial professionals to ensure compliance, which I think I've been seeing more of that auditing firm around here working for us lately than I think I can recall seeing them in years past. So I think we're definitely getting good use out of them.
Well, Mr. Mayor, what you saw this week was we had the auditors here. They were scheduled to be here for a full week, but they were able to be here for only 3 days, and we were able to get the annual financial statement completed. And I spoke with the audit partner who complimented our CFO and our tax collector because of all of our internal books were well in order, and it was easy for them to get the information that they needed. And they've already gotten a jump on the audit. They'll be back in a couple weeks to do the audit. So you did see them here. They were here for the annual financial statement. Once that's filed, we'll be able to take some of those numbers that we need and put them into the budget.
Okay.
And the other thing, when you talk about the financial professionals, it's the bond counsel, and it's a few others. It's people that are helping us look at doing projections for our capital costs as well as some of our other costs, and it's just something that's needed. I would just suggest that we say other financial professionals because we, in that there are times we're going to need people from to assist with doing a pilot, but then it's bond counsel, or it may be some other specialist that has to do with tax appeals or assessments, things of that nature.
Okay.
So then, Mike, we had an add to that, which was create a user-friendly budget and explore shared services or efficiencies, as well as revenue drivers.
Okay. I would agree.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, those are good to put in there, but I'd like to let the Township Committee know that there's been conversations going on between administrators in the area, and we're looking at creating having meetings with administrators that are in basically the surrounding towns, but that also includes four counties to discuss how we can assist each other, what shared services we may be able to create going forward. But what would be unique about this is we're all very close, but there are 4 counties municipalities in 4 counties that may be able to assist each other, and we may be able to create something, some different types of shared services that would be beneficial to all of our residents in these towns. So that's just getting off the ground.
That's great.
Yes, good news. The next goal, proactively manage, maintain, and improve our facilities in keeping with our best place to live designation. Maybe we can kind of pick up the pace, or we'll be here for 3 days. So, again, create 1, 5, and 10 capital plan to address both short-term repairs and maintenance and longer-term improvements. I think we kind of covered that above in the financial part, but this is specifically in our facilities. Conduct an assessment of all facilities, determine the best solution for the repair of the municipal building, renovation of the police department building, and repairs to the DPW buildings and water treatment plant. I think that goes hand in glove with A, to you can't forecast what the needs are going out 1, 5, and 10 years unless we identify what those needs are. Interrupt me, anyone, as you see fit. Conduct an assessment of all recreational facilities, including colony pools, sports fields, indoor space, and parks, to determine necessary repairs and longer-term improvements. I think that we've had some areas of improvement that have been called to our attention, including the skate park, but tennis courts and things, and I think that that needs to be an ongoing exercise. Work cooperatively with our police, fire, and EMS to plan for expenses for vehicle replacement and equipment needs. And I think that is the concept here, Bob, that you have envisioned going forward, is that kind of flows up from department heads as well as these different fire departments and rescue squads, that they're part of the early stage of the budget process and right on through.
Correct.
And then better sourcing of grants from the state, county, and private funding sources to mitigate costs. Anybody have any thoughts on kind of the general concepts there?
I would just suggest adding to C, open space, so we're more thoughtful about, any improvements in those areas. So where we've had the scouts who come in and they build a bridge and extend the trail over by Green Village, or you have, trying to think of some, Geralda Farms, improvements, so I know we have parks in there, but if we're more planned and thoughtful about some of our open space as well.
I think I separated out open space.
Later on?
Proactively plan for development in open space.
Where's that?
Second page.
So we'll mark open space here, and then when we come to it later, we can place it in either one of them. Goal number 3, manage.
I would like to just interject when it comes to not necessarily repairs to the DPW building, but an addition of some sort of protective garage. When we talk about the money that we spend on our heavy-duty equipment, there is no place more glaring to see that equipment exposed than down at the Department of Public Works. And, these aren't shiny fire trucks, and they're not things with big lights on top of them like rescue vehicles. But I'll tell you what, these large pieces of equipment cost a lot of money, and to see them oftentimes left out in the elements is actually, I think, short-sighted on our part. So I don't think we need to build a new fancy airplane hangar, but we do need to do something to protect those expensive vehicles.
Yep, that's a valid point. That's something that, if the equipment is covered, it'll last longer, so.
The crews down there, our mechanical staff down there does an incredible job at maintaining these vehicles, and they take an extraordinary amount of pride in the maintenance. But at times, you definitely see the impact, and they bring these big pieces of equipment in from doing their hard work, and they're really, really cared for. But when they're left out in the elements, in the acid rain and all the other, it's going to take its toll.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Goal number 3, manage, maintain, and improve infrastructure throughout the township. So that kind of differentiating it from the previous one, which was more the facilities, but in the sense that A, conduct an assessment of our municipal easements and stormwater management systems to determine appropriate repairs, replacements to better serve residents. Bob, this is something that's kind of popped up on your radar, that the concern about this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We need to look. Our water pollution control staff is looking at the easements. They're doing this on a regular basis, but they're looking at the easements. They're identifying where our manholes are. Many times the manholes are covered by grass, by 18 inches of dirt. Sometimes it's more, but we need to go in. We need to inspect, and we need to make sure that everything is in order in the walls that are going down to the sluiceways, and just that things are safe. There are times when a manhole is opened up and we find PVC pipe coming out and going into the sanitary sewer system, and that should not happen. We have means. We have a permit for the amount for the gallons that we can treat in our sanitary sewer system, and we don't want to exceed that permit. But in the fourth quarter of 2019, there was a spike in the volume, so our volume has gone up 20,000 gallons a day, which, says that there's something we have to go find it, and so that's what we're in the process of doing. It could be anything. It could be a collapsed pipe. It could be something. We did have a lot of rain, but a 20% increase in a quarter is more than a lot of rain. So we need to do that. We need to find it, and along the way we're going to have to do inflow and infiltration studies, and that's been done in the past. It's not popular, but it's something that we have to do, and we have to work with our homeowners. If they have gutters and leaders, there are ways they can put them into the stormwater system, but you can't put it into the sanitary sewer system. So that's going to be something that will be difficult to accomplish, but we have to work with our homeowners and make sure that the water is getting away from the house, but it's going into the right spot, because we're all paying for the treatment, and we shouldn't be treating rainwater. We should be treating sanitary. Yeah. 1 and 2.
Well, scope out projects and prioritize those most in need of repair and replacement. I think goes right to the heart of this whole exercise, really. I think that this is an exercise of identifying the top priority items and taking them in descending order, whether it's roads or whether it's the sewer plant or anything else. I mean, I think that we need to do this in an educated and intelligent fashion and recognize that we're not going to get them all done at once, that there's more here than we can realistically correct or address on the short term. But I think this is a tool, really, to make sure that we're putting our efforts and our money in the top priority items. Conduct similar assessments of our roads, sidewalks, and create a maintenance and repair plan. Same thing, but just specifically roads and sidewalks.
What is our plan for sidewalks? Do we even have a plan for sidewalks? We build them and then we have no idea how to repair them or maintain them, or whose responsibility it is?
Well, we know how to repair them, but it's who. The question is who's supposed to maintain them, who's supposed to clear them, and that's.
If it's on a county road, the county will tell you they're the last people who should be called.
Correct.
So they are the responsibility of Chatham Township, the responsibility of the homeowner who may not have asked for it.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just keep circling around until you find somebody who says, okay, Mrs. Jones, I'll come down and fix your sidewalk.
Well, again, we know how to fix the sidewalk. It's who's supposed to maintain it so that it's passable. That's one of the issues.
It is an issue.
Yeah.
It is an issue, because when you look at an area with mature trees like ours, you have a sidewalk that heaves up, and now all of a sudden you've got 300 school kids traveling on a sidewalk every day, and nobody knows how to fix that sidewalk. Is it the township? If it's on a regular local street, it's the township, I suppose. You're not going to tell the homeowner to come in and,
Depends
take
on-
that
it
tree
depen-
down or fix that sidewalk.
It depends on what our ordinance says, so I'm not sure.
Just for clarity, are we talking about fixing, repairing a sidewalk, or clearing it when it snows?
I'm talking about repairing a
Repairs.
sidewalk, such as when a tree has heaved it up, or when there's been other sorts of, obviously, if it's mechanical damage, the damager should be had feet held to the fire to repair it. We've seen that with utility companies and tree repair service and that sort of thing. So, but if it's Mother Nature, I really don't think it's the homeowner's responsibility. It never has been the homeowner's responsibility, but it needs to be delineated.
Yeah, I don't really think we have a plan for sidewalks.
We do not.
So I think one of the,
Building them though.
one of the efforts is that if we're going to build sidewalks and follow the master plan, the connectivity ideals set in the master plan, that we should really have a plan to maintain the sidewalks and do an assessment of the sidewalks. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be going and doing assessments and seeing what are, I think, Bob, you had mentioned that the worst goes to the first place,
Yes.
rather than just kind of ruling neighborhoods. And I think that idea would apply to all of these things with where our stormwater easements are failing, where we have sidewalk issues, where we have road issues. I think that all applies to it, but I think one of the most important things is to really do a full throttled assessment of what those are and then what it's actually going to cost to put together a maintenance plan. I think we had more than 60 complaints last year about stormwater issues. I think we were up at 64 the last time I checked.
I have 32 active files,
We have
so,
32 actives.
yeah.
Excess water, people getting water that were running off into their properties from our stormwater easements, and running down into their backyards or down into their driveways or down into their basements or down on roadways and ponding on driveways. And some of that is a result of the 2 years' worth of really kind of crazy water that we've had. And Bob has also mentioned that some of our infrastructure dates back to the 50s, where the stormwater requirement was a 25-year storm, and now the new requirement is a 100-year storm.
Well,
I don't think we have to go through and wholesale replace the entire system, but address those that are failing.
yeah, just a point of clarification, our stormwater system is based on a 25-year storm. The rules haven't changed, but what's been happening is we've been having more 100-year storm events in 1 year than before. So having our system at the 25-year level is not working. So the state has not yet changed it to a 100-year system.
So when you build a new building, you only build to a 25-year standard?
We need to be building to a higher standard, but
But there's no requirement, so
Right,
I can,
not
if I
yet.
build a new house, I can just put in a 25-year.
yes. So the drainage system has to meet the 25-year specifications. But our municipal system is our municipal system needs to be able to meet a higher standard. We'll get clarification on that for you.
Assess traffic issues throughout the township and to look to re-engage county and other towns on how to reduce traffic. I think that, again, if drainage is our most frequent complaint, probably traffic is the second most. Plan for needed, anyone, any thoughts, jump in? Plan for needed repairs and upgrades to the water treatment plant and to create an I&I assessment of the sewer lines, sewer easements and access points. I think Bob already covered that we've seen a surprising increase in the flow and don't really know where the source of that is. And F, continue improving connectivity through the township with sidewalks, paths, and walking trails. I think this kind of circles around to an item that's probably later here in the list, the master plan reevaluation. I think that we have a lot of elements of the master plan that need to be looked at and updated. They're reaching their 10-year limit and the required update. And I think the sidewalk plan specifically is included in one of those.
And Mr. Mayor, in this one, if we can, I'd like to include crosswalks, because we have some areas where we should look at line of sight and and make sure that our crosswalks are up to standard. And that could be anything from just restriping them with I'll call it glow-in-the-dark paint to putting up those, just the cones that are rubber that, you know, that can be in the middle of the road so drivers can see, so when students are stepping out there, they know that they need to slow down.
Those are fondly referred to as the little yellow men
Yeah,
throughout the town.
or Gumbies, you know, whatever.
Many of the sidewalks that we have are temporary and not compliant. They were just thrown there for good looks. I think when we had the enormous hue and cry regarding the Lafayette Avenue sidewalk and the peril that everybody was taking into their hands for not having a sidewalk on the other side of Lafayette, we went and painted crosswalks across Lafayette at the foot of Inwood, the foot of Oak, the foot of Chandler. Those sidewalks are in no way compliant. They're random, they have no handicap access pads coming down into the street. They're literally the crosswalks to nowhere. So when you talk about an assessment of crosswalks, you know, they were painted in there for show.
Okay.
And I don't know what you do about those, but paint, you know, if it's gonna take an extra coat of paint, it's the cheapest thing the township can buy. You just buy paint and make sure they're painted, you know, wherever we see these folks in the summertime, our DPW guys are out painting every sidewalk in town, and these are no exception, but they're just not, they're not kosher, so to speak.
Okay. And for me, when I was thinking about the crosswalks, I was thinking about on Southern Boulevard by where the firehouse is. There's that crosswalk, and it's just, you know, sometimes there are people that are coming off of that path that want to cross, and
Yeah, there's no crosswalk there.
No, well, there's don't block the box at the foot of the path. That's essentially all across.
oh, I thought that was I thought that was a crosswalk there. All right.
Oh.
Silly me, yeah.
No, but from
that's-
the firehouse to the other side of Southern Boulevard, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. There's that,
Technically, that's a crosswalk.
yeah. I just thought that should be
But
better
it's
marked.
And nobody recognizes it as a
Nobody
crosswalk.
recognizes crosswalks anywhere. I mean, the young lady that we had coming in the other day talking about the crosswalk or lack thereof at Cougar Field. And that's something that we actually have to discuss.
And I would add crossing devices to that, because part of what she spoke about were those flashing indicators that have gone up in several communities. I think Madison just put several up that give an indication that somebody can press in the evening time that will flash when there's a pedestrian in the roadway.
When you're talking about a major thoroughfare, I think that's important. I don't think that we can really, you know, when you talk about a small town, one of the beauties is the quietude, but when you look in Chatham Borough, they have one by the by the train station. And I think that in a situation like that, it's a good idea. When you look at the crosswalk by Charlie Brown's and Juniper Village, where there could conceivably be a heavy amount of pedestrian traffic, I think that might be a candidate for one of those. I don't think you go putting them up all over town, though.
And Shunpike.
I would, yes, they have their place, but they would be out of place as well.
Be out of place in a lot of places.
So in that category, I think we've, the additions that we've suggested here were crosswalks and crossing devices. Again, carefully reviewed.
I just have a question on this section.
Okay,
From a practical perspective, I mean, normally you would have your capital plan, this is a more comprehensive capital plan than what was done in the past, and your infrastructure plan prepared in time for the budget process. But, and I guess I would imagine there would still be some aspect of that, but there's a lot of things that still have to be discussed, whether it's, you know, the approach to sidewalks, how the roads are going to be prioritized, or you know, the decisions with the municipal building, the DPW. So I guess from a practical perspective, what do you think the timing for this will be?
Well, some of this will wind up being in 2020, others will be in 2021, but there are projects that we do over the summer, so you know, if doing crosswalks and things like that, that would be something that would be done in the summer. The roads, the Township Committee will be asked to fund a specific dollar amount for the roads, and then it'll be based on the determination of by the DPW director as well as the engineer, what roads are going to be requiring pavement this year. So that can be this year.
We also have the sidewalks to determine whether we're going to do the Fairmount sidewalk, because that's going to require $250,000.
Right, and there are at least 2 sidewalk projects that are grant funded that will require the input of the Township Committee and a funding requirement. So that's going to be a decision that would be made for 2020, and that's already in our capital plan for 2020, and will probably be in the capital budget for 2020, just to be on the safe side. So,
Okay.
I'm not sure if I answered your question specifically.
I mean, it sounds like it'll probably be piecemeal. I guess when I see, I mean, Tracy alluded to it a little bit, but if you talk about sidewalks, at some point there's a discussion, what are the priorities for sidewalks? What is the time frame? If there's a decision, I know if I mention any street that's going to get a sidewalk, there's going to be backlash. But if there's decisions to, or the discussion as to what sidewalks are a priority to put in place, and then map it out. Is it going to happen over 5 years? How is it going to get funded? So when I hear infrastructure plan, and that's just the sidewalks, then you've
We
got
still have 4 in the
wastewater
hopper.
management.
We have 4
Yeah.
sidewalks that are already planned and budgeted for.
Yes,
And
yeah.
guess what?
So that's what I'm talking about, is the large-scale plannings, when again, wastewater management, sewer easements, there's just a series of things that, you can project out, if we're talking 10, 20 years, you can project out and come up with a plan, how you're going to break things apart. When I hear infrastructure plan, that's what I think of, is that long-term.
Well, that's our ultimate goal, but there are steps that you have to take. So reviewing the sewer easements, that's a continuing process. That's like painting a bridge. You get to the other end and you start again. So we've got many miles of sewer easements. We're looking at them. We're looking at them on a more regular basis, and then once we've looked at all of them and identified them and given them GPS coordinates, so we'll be able to find all of them. We're going to go back. We have to go back and inspect them. We have to make sure that nothing has happened since the last inspection. But that's part of what we need to do. So that's something that's annual, and then based on those inspections, there are certain areas that'll have to be rebuilt, or just the catch basins that have to be rebuilt, and then there are some areas of the pump stations that have to be rebuilt. So that's on a basically a 5-year cycle, and then longer term, when we're doing the significant improvements on the equipment that's been around since the 1960s in the water treatment plant or the sewer treatment plant, that's probably something that will happen in 2021 or 2022. So does that answer your question? We have things that are ongoing annually, but the annual inspections also lead to 3, 5, and 10-year segments of our capital projects and our capital budget.
Some of this is kind of a chicken and the egg type of thing. There were some questions raised by an email that we got earlier today about traffic. So I went back and I pulled up the circulation plan for the circulation element of the master plan. And that's from 2009 and 2010. So when you talk about sidewalk planning, when you talk about connectivity, the best way to do it, as I see it, is to do a reevaluation in your master plan, work with Safe Routes to Schools or other GRAS or other organizations that are looking at planning these things, update the master plan, and then look at what we have already on the map for sidewalks, and then kind of go from there. I think this kind of forward planning part is missing. And that's what I hope we'll be able to get to.
Yeah, I mean, I at some point, it would be nice to have some document that comes out of it that says capital plan. These are all the items, this is the schedule, the timeline, this is how the, know, the funding is going to lay out over the course of so many years. And the same thing, infrastructure plan. These are the, you know, all this list of things that are on here that we talked about, and what the priorities are, what the time frame is, and what the funding. That's when I hear capital plan, infrastructure plan, and I expect that there will be a discussion about those at some point in time.
Yeah, there'll be a discussion about that when we go through the budget. I would like to point out that the state does require that, but it's part of our budget document. It's filed every year, but it goes out, it lists projects basically out for 6 years, and it's not as detailed as we will be doing it in the future, but there is something that's adopted by the Township Committee every year, and it's filed with the state. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Okay, number 4, proactively plan for development and open space to fulfill obligations and to maintain the character of the township. And under this, is the number 1 on this category is to continue to work toward a solution of our 3rd round of affordable housing, including the 24 at the skate park and the additional 74 units agreed to in the settlement. I think we've certainly, that's been taking a lot of our time, and I don't know if we need to, I don't think we can come up with a,
No.
with a lot more to say than right about that right now than we just said. B, maintain the existing affordable housing units and enforce the developer's fee ordinance to offset current and future affordable housing costs. Again, that's in the works. That's part of what was filed with the court just this past week, was to try to get that development fee up and running. C, evaluate master plan to ensure it is meeting the needs of future development and to better match our challenges. I think we've kind of referred to the master plan a couple times already. I think that that definitely is a big part of what's behind a lot of these different steps, is the master plan, and the planning board is a big step behind that. I mean, we have a lot of people to put some attention on that, so.
And Bob, is that something that's going to, because that's costly. I've gone through and I've read the master plan a couple of times, a couple of the elements. It's really out of date. And I don't think it at all meets our current challenges or needs, or has a future-looking planning component to it. So, and I know that that's costly. I think it was $40,000 just for the affordable housing element portion of it. That was in addition to our master plan. I think that's something that's in the works. I don't think that we've seen it. But what does something like that cost? And given that, you know, we've been attending some of the meetings and given by our partners, and some of the budget meetings and municipal meetings and things like that, and one of the key takeaways from that was that everything should drive from your master plan. And we don't seem to do that. So what cost, I mean, or what do we look, is it feasible to redo our master plan?
Well, at some point it has to be done, but you can do it in segments. And I think one of the important ones that we have to take a look at is we have to take a look at the land use element. We've talked about the sidewalk, and then we will probably be talking about bikeways and things like that, but there's also I'll call it a sub-element for the master plan that deals with sidewalk and bikeways.
I think that was done in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
So-
the circulation plan
that-
element.
The circulation plan, from what I understand at the planning board level, has basically been in the hopper and ready for review by the planning board for about a year.
Okay.
The work has all been put in there, and it really is all but ready to be delivered to the planning board. And we have certainly had other more pressing issues at the planning board level over the last year. So I think that is something that you may want to bring up at the next planning board meeting, is if this circulation element is about as close to getting done as need be, then roll it out and get the planning board to do it. And we've put to bed an awful lot of the more pressing issues right now, so I think that's something that's worthy of the board's attention at this point, now that some of the more critical things have transpired.
I've had a preliminary conversation with the planning board chairman, and we need to pursue exactly that. I think the same thing is true with the open space element, that's been largely drafted. But you're right, they need to be pushed over the finish line.
Yeah, so lest anybody think that we have been ignoring the master plan, in fact, quite to the contrary. It's just that the planning board certainly has been very occupied with other matters of more urgency.
But is it realistic to think that we'll have some money in the budget for 2020 to actually move this forward, Bob?
I will get back to the Township Committee, because I believe that there's a proposal, but I
Okay.
just want to dot my i's and cross my t's, so I will get back to the Township Committee.
I was going to say,
There's
if I
at
could
least-
ask too, if there was a budget for the circulation plan, were you talking, Karen, about the circulation plan element
pretty much done.
from 2018?
Yeah.
Was that in 2018 or 2017?
Probably over the last 2 years, 18, 19.
Does that come before the Township Committee?
No, I think the planning board the planning board adopts the master plan, and then the township committee gets to adopt the ordinances, the zoning ordinances that build off of it. I think they'll present it to us and we would discuss it. Albert, you want to
Yeah,
weigh in on
because I
the
think
on
that
the
seems
legal?
like a bit of a disconnect if it's been hanging around for a couple of years, but nobody's reviewed it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, the master plan is a planning board.
Take-
Yes, I'm sorry. There you go.
The master plan is a planning board document. The one element that you do review is the housing element and fair share plan. That is the affordable housing portion of it. So that is adopted by the planning board, and you get to endorse it. But it really is a planning document that is created by the planning board.
I think the question was, how long do you leave an element that has actually received the attention of the board or a subcommittee before it actually, is there some sort of shelf life, so to speak?
Well, the master plan has a 10-year shelf life and has to
Right.
be re-examined every 10 years.
Right, and so if a town is mandated to revisit certain elements on a 10-year cycle, what happens when a reviewed element is ready to be rolled out but just hasn't received the attention of the board for its approval? Is there any sort of initiative, any sort of impetus to get it to move ahead, or?
Well,
is
the land use element is really the one that is most critical, because your zoning ordinances have to be in line with the land use element. If they're not, then the zoning ordinance can be declared invalid. The other elements are more planning guides. They don't really have a consequence if they're not followed. They're really, they are mechanisms for you to, for example, get funding. To get open space
Right.
funding, you have to have a current master plan or a current open space plan. So that's I'm not sure I understand your question, but the shelf life of the master plan is 10 years, has to be examined every 10 years. The key is the housing, the land use element, which is the one that guides your ordinances, and if the two are not in sync, then that could result in certain, technical
So for a
problems.
less critical element, such as the circulation plan, which is really sort of a sweeping how goods and vehicles and people get around a community, when you do go to revisit it, I mean, with all due respect to the planning board itself, when I joined the planning board, we were tasked with revisiting the circulation element, and that was probably 2014, 2013. So this review has been a behemoth undertaking because of all of the different committees and subcommittees and opinions and everything else that had to get involved. It turned into a 50-page document before the board said, this is ridiculous, there's no need for a 50-page circulation element. So it did go back to the drawing board just to simplify it.
Well, I think what you do is precisely what you're saying, is present it to the planning board. Even if it's 2 years old, the planning board can make a judgment as to whether or not it's acceptable or it needs to be further updated. So I think the key is, if it's done, present it to the planning board, have that discussion. If they feel more information is needed, they can ask that, for that information. If not, they can proceed forward in adopting it.
I think this, probably the time is right.
So the larger question I guess I had was looking at not doing piecemeal elements of it, since there are various parts that are, some go back to 2005, some are 2010, some were funded and redone in 2013, but then got shelved, in 2003, and then got shelved, and there's various pieces and parts. I would like to see a full review of the master plan to make sure all of the elements agree, and that there's a future aspect to it. So I don't know what the cost is for that, but rather than do it piecemeal, given that we're many years out on this plan, and we've had significant changes in the past 10 years, I would like to put that down as something that I'd like to see is being done.
I think that's a job for the planning board, right?
Yes, but you
Because
have
they
to-
have their own budget, right?
Well,
No, we have to fund
they
it.
don't have a budget independent of what you fund.
What we give them.
Right, so if you don't put money in there for a plan, a master plan, then they don't have that
I
budget.
don't think they've ever been denied it.
Well, I think, Albert, from your experience, is it typical to do a full-blown rewrite of an entire master plan, or would it be
what
more
the elements
usual
are
to
for.
tackle element by element?
Well, I think, I know I'm accused of giving you engineering advice, giving you planning advice.
Culinary
and
advice.
very little legal advice. I think really that question is best asked to the planner, because he understands he knows where the development of the overall plan is.
Yeah.
So I think you may want to get an idea from the planner.
Mr. Mayor? On our township website, we have a master plan periodic reexamination report adopted March 20th, 2017, and it was prepared by our township planner. Perhaps the planning board should revisit that document, since it's a relatively recent document. And
Frank would do it again.
yeah,
Okay, I think the language, actually, the way it is here is probably where we want it to be then, for the moment. And we ought to get the planning board involved and focused on, telling us what the priorities are. Letter D, evaluate opportunities and the future of our commercial area downtown. This would be our Hickory Square area, which kind of, again, it's part of the whole concept of just taking a look at our master plan and how everything holds together. But I think that area is something that has gotten some attention from us with our affordable housing obligations, and what makes sense to be located where in terms of the walking distance and shopping access. And I think that that is a good thing to include in there, and as a reminder that that's something that would benefit from a look. Anybody jump in if you... continue to monitor opportunities for open space for both active and passive recreation. I think that's very similar to the next one too. Seek grants to purchase open space or to improve existing open space parcels. This is something that we have an open space committee that is on, continuously looks at this. They have a overarching strategy and an eye on specific properties. So I think that it's as part of goals and objectives, it makes sense to identify it, but it certainly is not a reflection on the fact that it's not already happening. G, work cooperatively with Chatham Borough and the school district with respect to development. I think that ties in with something previously about, working with the county on, specifically on traffic and projects like that. But, and Bob, you mentioned already the initiating communications with surrounding administrators of surrounding towns. I don't think we should forget the school district as well as a resource that we can help them out on occasion, and that they should be able to help us out when it comes to equipment and things like that. And investigate anomaly lots in the R4 zone with more than 100 feet of frontage.
How many of them are there? The R4 zone is the smallest level, the smallest zones in town.
I just, D and H, those really should be tasks for the planning board, not necessarily for the township committee. So that probably needs to be a subset of the master plan. I mean, what you're going to do with a master plan is you're going to fund it. And the planning board is going to take over that task. And it seems to me that D and H also are part of what the normal planning process would be. You would rely upon a recommendation of the planning board as to how to rezone an area.
I think.
So just
the-
move those out and just put
Yeah,
that to the
I
planning
mean,
board?
frankly, personally, we've been down this road with the R4 zone for years, and it's ludicrous that we're even still bringing it up. The R4 zone is the smallest areas in our town, and to hinder people who already live in the smallest areas of town, to me, is just an egregious overstep for us as a township committee. And certainly in my years on the planning board, I was discouraging of it at that point too. We worked with John Rushke on this. We worked with the idea of what we saw as gratuitous overbuilding, and really nobody could locate any examples of note. So it was not a chronic problem throughout our township, and I think that we brought it up and tabled it twice in my tenure.
So it was tabled again last year?
Yep.
There was supposed to be a report to the township.
Well, apparently the planning board didn't have anything to report, which is why they came back. The idea that the planning board members were charged with was really going out and identifying egregious overbuilding in the R4 zone. And really, essentially, nobody came back to report anything. And so John Rushke said, well, this is the second time we've had it. And I believe John has had, if not a formal report, at least a candid discussion with us over the last year or two about this. So it was
At the
not a
planning
full,
board.
well, at the planning board and here. I mean, John has spoken about it. It wasn't a full-fledged report because there wasn't really a full-fledged series of complaints to bring back to us.
I just want to close the loop on an
I think
outstanding.
it's closed.
I mean, maybe we can ask John to give a report
I'm
report
sure
on
he
that.
would come up with the exact same three
Yeah.
sentences as he's come
Yeah.
up with over the last 2 years.
That's fine.
I would support that in that, I think the proper way to go about that is to close the loop, but I would support taking that off of goals and objectives. I don't,
Fine.
so I think that's,
I don't have a problem with it, do you?
okay. Any other thoughts on that? So, on that one, goal, to manage, maintain, and improve our recreational facilities to meet the needs of our residents and are reflective of our community. Objectives, complete an assessment of our recreational fields and facilities to determine repairs and future needs for turf replacement, field conditions, drainage, and parking. Again, I think this ties in with, to a great extent, with the capital 5 and 10 and 15-year plan, that but just specifying that it needs to include a real look at the recreational fields and facilities, and as part of that. Repair tennis courts and gazebo. The gazebo might need a little bit more than repairing, but.
I'm not too sure it's going to survive power washing at this point. It's kind of been left.
Oh, okay, you're talking about the tennis court gazebo.
Yeah.
Okay,
You talked about something.
I was talking about
Yeah.
this.
That would be the phoenix from the ashes.
Southern Boulevard gazebo bit the
Okay.
dust a long time ago, but, yeah, we've had a 4-year request to repair the tennis courts. I think an estimate was done in 2016 that John has. That put it at about $50,000. That didn't include the gazebo. We'll have to do an assessment of what the status of the gazebo is. And I think he estimated the further kind of deterioration of the courts to be now somewhere in the $60,000 to $75,000 range for the repair of the tennis courts.
Did you ever address that matter with the boosters, when you were with the boosters? Since the high school sports, since the
Yeah,
high school tennis
boosters
team?
don't pay for municipal facilities.
Even though they're the ones who use the facilities by the lion's share?
Well, I don't know if we actually know that, but we have a cooperative agreement with them to utilize all of our recreational facilities. But the boosters would not pay to repair a municipal facility.
With the school
So-
district?
I think we approached the school district, and they also said that it was a municipal facility, and they had their own projects to spend their own money on, and they didn't want to take on something like this. I think
Would the
think
school
they did
district
the-
be interested in using the courts down at the borough instead of the ones at the
They do.
colony pool? Oh, good.
The JV goes to the borough, and the borough is also has to redo their courts, and the varsity uses, and sometimes they switch back and forth year over year depending on the condition of the courts. The school board does provide the windscreens. They provide the drinking, I don't know what you would call them. They were completely rusted out. We had to throw them out.
Has the borough done any maintenance on their tennis courts over the
I
last
think they're
couple
in
of
the
years?
same, I think they're in the same boat. that
Oh, so
they
they're not
they
doing
haven't been
anything either.
maintained. So this has been a 4-year request for the tennis courts and the gazebo. There was some quick fixes done 2 years ago to the cracks when there was a safety issue raised. But that is since the cracks that didn't hold. And I think we all, at that point, well, at least those of us that were on the committee at this point, did a kind of a quick walkthrough to see the condition of the courts. We had them take down the windscreens. The windscreens were held together with duct tape. And we did meet with the school. So that's something that I would like to see in the budget this year.
C is utilize $100,000 Chatham Athletic Foundation grant to replace the lights at Nash and to repurpose the skating area. Thank you very much, Chatham Athletic Foundation. And D, assess future needs and improvements for Colony Pool with the goal of breaking even in the costs. An ongoing project there. Work with Chatham Borough on shared recreational opportunities is E, and F is work on solution with the county for the replacement of the skate park. I think that any additions or thoughts on it, any of those?
I think we can put with the county and/or other towns.
Okay,
Speaking of shared services, right?
yep.
Or other counties. Come on, you got 4 of them, all in one hopper.
All right, so county, counties, or other towns.
Mr. Mayor? For what it's worth, I was contacted by a resident of a neighboring town a few days ago seeking information on the process that we went through to build our skate park. Now, this individual is going to be petitioning their town to build a skate park, so that may be a natural-born solution to, or an organic solution to the problems that residents of another community are already underway to get something like this done.
Cool. Shared
We've
services.
always said that it's a regional facility. We've been amazed at how far people will travel to come here. So, the fact that it should be a regional solution, I think, is a no-brainer. Moving on to the next goal, to maintain our high standard for environmental stewardship, support the Environmental Commission's goals and their efforts to obtain Silver Sustainable Jersey certification. That's the green team goal. They're bronze now, and they're looking at the feasibility of stepping up their activity on that whole statewide program. So I think we can expect to hear more this year ahead on some things that, I think that's a 3-year project, so they're looking at it and hoping to nibble at it over the course of a couple of years. Assess the recycling facility to better meet the needs of residents. Renegotiate the township recycling contract to reduce costs and provide better service.
I would love to know where that one came from, because we are not actually scheduled to revisit the recycling contract until the summer of 2021, from what I understand. Um, And I don't know how on earth we are going to reduce costs and provide better service unless we discontinue the program altogether and tell the MUA we're not paying them anymore. Right now, we are still continuing to get chargebacks from them. So even in spite of what our contract says, the end of every year, we still owe them additional funds.
Yeah, I looked into that at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And when you look at the dollar swing from what we used to get
Yes,
as a return
As
on
a
the
return.
profit about 5 years ago, to what we are now, that was a positive, to what we're paying now is a negative. I
Right.
think it was about a $100,000 swing.
right.
So that's a,
And I will say still, with all the options, I still believe that working with the MUA is probably the most productive. The people there are actually the most helpful. Certainly, there's been the idea of looking into private carriers, private carting companies, private recycling companies. The cooperation that we would lose, the information stream that we would lose, the intellectual property that we would lose if we no longer worked with MUA would be, I think it would be a bad trade off if we were to discontinue our relationship with the MUA, because they are very good, very helpful people. There was something mentioned not long ago here in the township about the charge back to us for contamination, when in fact that couldn't be less true. We are one of the best communities in terms of contamination rates in Morris County. Some other towns are bad, we are not bad. In fact, the percentage of contaminated recycling goods that get sent to MUA is very, very good. We're a good community when it comes to that. So before we start barking up all kinds of other trees looking for a better deal, I think that our relationship with the MUA is really a very solid, good relationship. The question is whether it remains even something that's worth our while. I think people are so emotionally tied to recycling that there's no way of undoing it. Plus, it's a legal matter. I don't know what they would come back with in 2021 to give us something, but we do have until the summer of 2021 to revisit our contract.
So I think we'll start that process in the summer of 2020, and start researching.
Well, the contract ends in 2021.
Yeah, so we would need to start
It's good through
at some point
2020.
to investigate the opportunities that there are to reduce. Certainly, it was a game changer in the beginning of beginning of 2019, when recyclables are no longer being accepted and garbage in general is no longer being accepted in other countries. It had an enormous impact on how people recycle. There's no place to send it anymore. So the question is, how can we reduce our costs? And if there's a way to provide better service, given this new landscape, I'm hoping that maybe the MUA will be looking at how they can provide better service.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. On renegotiate, do you really mean renegotiate, or do you mean explore other options to the MUA? Because really, my understanding is the MUA is a standard contract to all the municipalities, so you're really not treated any differently than any other municipality. And so it's a uniform contract, and you should be paying the same as a neighboring municipality that's participating. Are you saying look for options or alternatives to the MUA?
well, I would, building on what Karen said, I think that it's working with the MUA, but working with anybody who will come up with a better solution than we have now. I think the concern is how long do we want to continue to live with our existing system of whether it's single stream, whether it's MUA's service to us, whether it's any other aspect of recycling. And I'm not saying that being critical of MUA. I mean, I think that we would be fiscally irresponsible if we continue to pay $100,000 a year for a recycling program that,
It's probably
with-
200,000.
without
with all due
exploring.
respect, yeah.
That's right, 100,000 more than we were paying before. That
Mm-hmm.
actually, that doesn't address what we actually are paying, you're right.
Right.
You know, explore, that would be fine. I mean, maybe that is a better, because if a contract is ending, it's really not renegotiating, it's,
Looking for options.
yeah, it's looking for options and exploring options.
I do think you'll find that going with a private carding company or going with dual stream recycling will probably end up doubling our costs. And we'll find out that when you go with dual stream, you'll probably find out that there's zero market for the stream, for one of those
The one or
streams.
two?
Yeah, if you're looking for paper and cardboard in one stream, you're gonna go with glass and plastic and aluminum in another, you're probably gonna find just a bad dichotomy between the two. Like there's gonna be no market for one of them.
Mr. Mayor? When this topic had come up in the past, as far as our contract with the MUA, I believe there were some different options that we had with them, such as how often that they do the pickup, if it's every other week or every week or multiple times a week. And the committee had weighed the current pickup schedule against whether or not you wanted to continue to have the recycling center, if you wanted to have, just, every Friday, or have every other week and have the recycling center a couple days. So there may be a little wiggle room in negotiating with the county for the new contract term.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Okay?
Yeah. The wording, it would probably be beneficial if the wording were review or explore other options for that. The contract does expire in 2021. The MUA did put on a very good recycling seminar for municipal staff sometime in mid-December, and it was very educational. They were talking about, and it was, I would characterize it as it was positive, but it was also a Dutch uncle type of seminar, because there's just, they were talking about the reality of China not accepting recycling, and the fact that even though municipalities can't, have a good record of low contamination, it still doesn't meet the criteria for going abroad. So the criteria is 1/2 of 1% contamination for each ton. So the solution is not to send it overseas. The solution is we have to do something here. And they were just talking about what are some of those options. And sometime in the next 2.5 to 3 years, there's going to be more I guess, paper and cardboard recycling plants that are going to be coming online. So that's something that the MUA was looking at, to try and negotiate some contracts with basically plants here in the U.S. But we need to monitor this, because this is a cost. But they are doing a lot of research
Right.
that, how can we reduce consumption, and then how do we use recycling? How do we make sure that it stays here so that the transportation costs are less? So,
Now, I don't think MUA in and of themselves is the problem. I mean, the recycling market is
Yep.
the problem, not the
Now,
MUA.
How about if we change the wording there to say both, work with the MUA, and if necessary, explore alternatives for the township recycling? I mean, I think
Sure.
that they deserve credit for what
Well,
they
they
do
do,
for us.
yeah.
But
They'll provide us with information and seminars and handouts and materials, and you name it, they're,
we have recycled bags from them from that December meeting, and
what's that?
we have recycled bags from that meeting in December with some good information in it, but the bags are made of recycled materials.
There you go, start handing them out like candy.
implement the plastic bag reduction ordinance on March 1st. I think that
Beating that one up.
then we can leave that in the hands of the Environmental Commission for now, I think. Investigate the use of solar panels and charging stations.
Mr. Mayor, my question on that is where? At municipal facilities, at private facilities? Where are you?
I would say across the whole spectrum, really. I think if we can encourage community use of them and private, at private homes we kind of look at our zoning ordinances and see to what extent they either help or hinder that kind of activity. But then I think also, do we have any upside to looking at them on municipal properties and municipal buildings? So I would say both.
Again, municipal buildings, municipal facilities is something you have control over. If you want to make solar panels permitted and charging stations are permitted throughout the town, then it would be something for the planning board to look at.
Okay.
I would suggest having the fire departments weigh in on that, what the impact would be of having solar panels on a roof and how that affects their ability to fight fires from, overhead.
Okay, investigate that as well, okay? Work with PSE&G and JCP&L to better manage tree removal in the right-of-way. Again, it's a,
I think that's something that we have seen discussed with PSE&G at length recently. And I think even with our most recent meeting with PSE&G, with essentially their admission that they were lacking in the notification process of our neighbors and fellow residents. So I think that any work that PSE&G will be doing of any sort going forward will be much better noticed than the tactic they used in the past in the right-of-way that went up over Sunset and Nicholson, there, Stace. I think they know they really created a bad problem there. So they will definitely be improving their public relations on that. As far as JCP&L, with their tree removal, they will be entering into a new cycle of forestry in the summer ahead. We have the schedule. The schedule was already sent to us for the streets that will be addressed. As far as keeping branches out of their wires. And when it comes to their right-of-way, that's their right-of-way, and that's their charge. Their charge is to keep the branches off the wires and to do everything they can to increase the reliability of the grid. So as far as how we are going to work with them, we have great lines of communication open. They are not going to change what they need to do, essentially. So I think the notification process is something that we really have to make sure of.
Do they give the homeowner an option?
The homeowner always has an option.
Because they can
If
have the
it
tree cut
is-
down if they don't like it.
If the JCP&L comes to them and says, we have to consider taking this tree down, the homeowner can say no. The homeowner cannot say no to please don't prune the tree.
Right.
But the homeowner can say, I don't want you to remove it, and then they're on their own. And then the whole neighborhood will come to you and say, I can't believe you let that tree take out the power to the whole neighborhood. But JCP&L will never overstep onto a resident's property and take their trees down.
I think one of the concerns that's been expressed that led to this is that we used to have tree pruning. So it used to go tree by tree, and we used to complain about that because the tree ends up like this.
And that's actually
Or it ends up like this.
That's actually their paradigm.
And
The
then it
tree
seems to
pruning
have-
we saw this summer was definitely an additional aggressive tree pruning on behalf of their relationship with BPU and the governor. Because
And
they
I
were
think we
told
saw it-
by the governor, if that's what you need to do to keep the lights on, then you do it. And they went and took a very aggressive stance. Chatham Township certainly did see a very aggressive tree removal situation this
Because they
summer.
moved from tree pruning, then they moved to just cutting trees down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to your point about communication, I think that we were really kind of left in the dark on that process too.
Well, the homeowners weren't.
Well, some of the homeowners were noticed, but
All of the homeowners were noticed.
well, we had a lot of complaints from homeowners who had no idea that this was going on. And we
I
didn't have,
would challenge that, I would really literally challenge that.
we had no idea that this was going on. We didn't have streets that were being cut down. We
The
didn't have.
homeowners were all noticed individually. They had a hang tag, they had something to sign, they were given phone numbers to call, they received personal visits. The homeowners were notified by JCP&L when the trees were suspect. And if the homeowner objected,
On their properties.
absolutely.
Yeah, not the right-of-ways. I don't think that we had, I don't think we had any real notice that there were two things going on. One, which was the ash tree removal, which we all knew about.
And then they
we got
stepped that
the-
up to make it a much larger.
And then it
initiative.
morphed into a reliability effort that then we just saw, you just drove down streets and you saw trees just gone, huge trees just gone. So to your point about, we have good communications with them, but where they fall short is on the Southern Boulevard swath. They fell short on notifying them that it wasn't just the arbor tree, the ash borer tree issues, it was trees that were being considered as being anywhere near a power line. And the irony of it is that our transformers keep blowing up. So the goal is to just better manage that process. And to your point, you think that they're getting to better understand that they made a big mistake.
Well, the PSE&G for sure, and the work that they did in their right-of-way. And they were pretty much admitting of it and realizing that they fell short of their consumer relations obligation to us. At the end of the day, I don't know what the result would have been any different, just that they would know, because they were going to do what they had to do, whether everybody received a knock on the door or not. And that's,
And so that kind of goes right into create a tree planting plan to replace trees that have been lost.
right, lost to what?
To the cutting down for their reliability.
Well, you're going to plant trees in an area where they're going to impact reliability.
It would be a lower, it would be an understory tree or a street tree.
If there are, certainly on the JCP&L website, they have the array of trees that will only grow 10 feet. If a resident wishes to replant a tree, then they're more than, absolutely. If they wish to replace the mighty oak with a dogwood, that's awesome, and that provides a nice streetscape for them. A resident can do that. A resident is encouraged to replace it with a tree that's going to grow 10 feet,
Yeah, right.
15 feet. It's not going to impact the wires. As far as what they are going to do, they won't do anything to do that. But as far as Chatham Township going around and replanting trees, I don't know whether that's an initiative we want to embark upon.
Well, we did do it after Sandy. Remember, we made trees available to the residents.
We made trees available to the
buy,
residents.
yeah, and they were,
To buy.
that would be a nice thing
Right.
to do.
Yeah, I think that's a aspirational statement. I think that's something everybody would support, is, caring for the trees in the town. But I think in terms of the details of making that work, I don't know that we need to get into the details of it in terms of a goals.
I'm a little
goals and
concerned
objectives.
about whether it's a governmental responsibility to create a plan for residents to replace their trees.
But a plan to assist them, to give them direction and advice, to encourage. I mean, it could go a lot of different ways. I hear what you're
A
saying.
lot of
We don't
different
want to pay for trees on private property, that's for sure.
Well, that's one thing, but the other thing is to create a plan for residents when residents have certainly shown an ability to plan for themselves. I really don't know whether this is a job for the Township Committee.
I think that if we look in our right-of-ways and look to promote a program that, we would pay for. We're known for our trees. It's one of the shining examples of the township. We're known for our tree canopy. And if we drive down streets and all that we see are stumps, which JCP&L is not paying to remove, which is going to be another cost borne by the township, unless something that was kind of left TBD when our representative was here. That's a very expensive thing to get rid of all of those stumps. And that's a TBD thing. I don't know when we negotiate that or when we go back and talk to them about that, but we certainly don't want to have streets and right-of-ways filled with stumps. So I'm not suggesting that we tell homeowners to replace. We hope that they're going to replace trees. But what I would like to see is a concerted effort by the township in conjunction with the Environmental Commission to look at trees that do meet the criteria, because there is something on the website about what trees meet that criteria, and be able to replant those trees and bring this back to what we want the township to look like, which is having a beautiful tree canopy. And I think that's well worth the investment to keep up the quality and the character of the township.
More government.
So I think that in that category, we said on the recycling contract, we want to amend it to work with the MUA and explore other alternatives, and then to continue regarding the township recycling contract. And also regarding solar panels, specify that on municipal buildings and with the planning board's review, explore ordinances that encourage solar panels on homes, and also to seek fire department
Right.
input on that. The next goal, create best practices for communications and technology. Continue to audit software and ensure our departments are up to date. Protect the township from cyber attacks. Finalize negotiations with Comcast and update the video equipment and software. Update the website with the goal of bringing the website in-house. Create an electronic newsletter to inform residents of town news, events, and opportunities. Create online fillable forms and payment systems. Create more opportunities for the public to be involved by creating a senior advisory committee and community business affairs committee. Require annual reports from all committees, boards, and commissions. Any thoughts on any of those?
Yeah, if I may.
Please.
We update the website, goal of bringing it in-house. I just would suggest more user-friendly and timely information. It's a little aged and
To
stale.
redesign the actual website.
Yes, yeah. And then I would also suggest better use of our channel that we have, the Comcast channel that we have to disseminate information. I attended the senior advisory committee meeting in the borough today, and it was very interesting to hear, there were a lot of concerns about how they were getting information, and they really wanted to pursue other avenues, and the TV was a way, and it could be if we have a presentation on a topic that gets, rotated through periodically. It could be making sure the schedule is scrolling on there with all the information about things going on in the town. But they just felt that they weren't getting information. They said paper is good. They like the mail, but that's expensive and that kills more trees. So not necessarily the priority. And not everybody's online, so that really wasn't very helpful. But the TV was a way. They could flip on the channel and it's scrolling through. And especially if they know, 10 a.m. every morning, they can get the day's schedule, the month's schedule, the updated month's schedule. So if we can make better use of that channel that we have to disseminate information. I'd also suggest if we could better coordinate with the school district, because they have some great stuff, or any community, the different organizations that we have, the different nonprofit organizations that we have. If they have information to get out, let them, well, not have access, but provide that information and we float it on the channel. I don't know how easy that is to do, but I assume it's like running a DVR in the background or a computer screen. You're going to say something, Greg?
Yeah, I think we do actually need to update some of the information that is on our TV channel now. And Tom Salvis, who's been here, has been instrumental in our continuing negotiations with Comcast and trying to get money and doing a deep dive into the contract and looking at what our cable access channels allow us to do and not do. And it's really coming into more of a staffing issue as to who is able to make these updates, who's able to upload this information. We just really haven't had anybody to do that. But I don't disagree with you. I think we can make better use of our TV channel, and it's good to hear from the Senior Advisory Committee that that's an opportunity that they would like to have.
Mr. Mayor? With the letter F, create online fillable forms and payment systems, the other night when the Board of Health met, they briefly broached the topic of possibly looking into that for dog license renewals, since I had updated on that process, which is certainly something worth looking into in addition to a myriad of other fillable forms, such as submission of records requests and whatnot. The only thing I just want to make sure that the whole committee is aware of is that with payment options, if we were to accept credit card payments, there would be a convenience charge to residents, so that way the taxpayer is not shouldering the burden of whatever convenience fee is assessed during that transaction. So, for example, if there was a dog license renewal, instead of paying the standard $21 that you would pay by check or cash, if you paid by credit card, it might be $22 or $23, whatever that additional fee would be. I bring this up not to stop you from moving forward with that, but just to make sure that it's understood from the get-go that would be something that residents would have to look forward to if they wanted to use that option. It's just like with the current system we have for online tax payments. If people pay by credit card, they have that option. They just have to be willing to pay the extra, I think it's like a 2 or 3% additional fee.
Is that true with the, using the direct from the bank? That's also a charge for that.
Yeah, I think there's, with the paying directly from your checking account, I think our system charges some sort of a convenience fee for that as well.
Small, it's like $1.
Yeah.
$2. It's small,
Yeah.
one, right.
Yeah, but I just want,
Smaller than a credit card. The convenience charge for a direct bank draft is smaller, much smaller than the credit card.
If, just as a point of clarification, I'm not sure, we'll get back to that. I don't think there's a charge if it comes directly from your personal account. There is a charge when a credit card is used, and there had been a survey that was done, and our residents overwhelmingly wanted that, but right now, I don't believe TD Bank is charging to accept money, from somebody's account, but we'll get you that
Okay.
information.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And just to recap that segment, add an extra item to say, explore expanded use of municipal TV station to publicize events. And also on the updating the website, it's insert a phrase to be more user-friendly, and then continue with the goal of bringing the website in-house. The next goal, ensure the safety of our residents through our emergency services. A, have a fully operational Office of Emergency Management and supporting volunteers. B, encourage / require residents to sign up for our emergency alert system. C, work with PSE&G and JCP&L to audit our substations, transfer, utility poles to minimize the loss of power events. D, discuss the possibility of moving power lines underground. And E,
We're going to
renegotiate.
take that off.
Take that off?
Yeah. Because that's something that has to happen as part of the process.
What's that?
Renegotiating contracts.
Oh,
Oh, the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. Certainly okay. Any thoughts?
yes, the Office of Emergency Management is going to have a first meeting of the year in February. We're already working on that and trying to get all parties involved. As far as the idea of requiring residents to sign up for our emergency alert system, I'm a little bit askance by requiring our residents to do anything. If this is, I don't know how we would ever go about making them do that. I think that really has to come off of there. I would encourage our residents always to sign up for emergency alerts, but requiring them seems a little bit ridiculous to me. As far as working with JCP&L to audit substations, utility poles, and other bits of their infrastructure, I know that that will absolutely never happen. That is a matter of their security. They will never offer us an audit of their transmission and their delivery systems. They do have a regular schedule of maintenance and checking, and certainly if there was a problem, they would be more than willing to come out and address it as a matter of all due urgency. But as far as conducting an audit of their substations and their utility poles, that will never happen as a matter of security.
I think it's something that the borough has a committee that's working on power and moving the power lines underground. And one of the things that they were finding, which was really very interesting, was that the power poles are 60-plus years old in some cases. And that it was failure of the power poles that were pulling some of the lines that were creating these random sunny day power outages. And it seems, well, it doesn't seem like, it's been happening with much more frequency that we're having these substations blow up all the time. I think one resident had reported 11, this was last year, mid-year, 11 power disruptions that were not related to power lines coming down. So it's something that we need to, so as part of this committee that they have and working with the utilities, they were saying that they could go around and take a look at all of the utility poles to find out which poles were sagging. And then it's kind of like, you know, when you buy a car and you think that nobody else has the car, and then you drive out on the parkway and you realize that everybody else has the same exact car. Now all of a sudden I'm driving around and all I see are the power poles that are going this way or that way or this way or this way, and so it becomes kind of top of mind.
If that is a pole by pole inspection that we as lay people want to do and call them in with, you know, all due respect to being a nuisance, if we see something that is a problem, it is their absolute obligation to come and take care of it. If there is a pole that is jeopardizing the public safety, they will come out and assess it.
Well, I think the interesting thing that they learned was that they didn't realize that that was happening.
And then that is
So
incumbent
it's
upon the
not really
homeowner or
As
incumbent
a
upon.
layperson, to be able to see what's at the top of a pole on a street in the easement that was potentially had something that was happening at the top with the fixtures that were affixing the wires. I think what we need to do is, and this is again coming from residents, demand some more accountability as to why these substations keep blowing up, why we're experiencing this
I think a lot of it has to do
power
with,
outages.
a lot
And
of
I
it has
think
to
if
do
we
with
are
the
able to
building
talk with-
and the
Can I
overbuilding.
just finish
Yeah.
my phone? So with residents continuing to bring these to the fore, and of course everybody's experienced them, but there's one particular community, the neighborhood that seems to be continually experiencing them, which is the lower part of Fairmount, Stonewick, River Road, as that power station has blown several times, most recently just a week ago. I think that as a service provider, it's something, and we use their service, and you know, to some extent they're monolithic, so there's not much of a choice, but I do think that we need to demand some accountability and looking into this. They make billions of dollars in revenue, and we need them to put it back into the infrastructure in our township. I mean, we had wooden poles that are 60 years old. We have substations that are blowing up. We have squirrels that can get into transfer stations. I think at some point, if we make a concerted effort amongst the towns to go back and say, we need some answers and we need some updates in infrastructure, I don't think that that's a bad thing.
How about if we take out the middle portion of that sentence? Because I question whether we have the knowledge and expertise in-house to audit.
No, it was for them to audit.
They will not do that.
But so if we just change it to work with PSE and JCP&L to minimize the loss of power events.
Well,
and-
we can communicate with them. If the residents can go online, the residents can call their service, they can call JCP&L 24/7. They can report. The builders in town are supposed to alert the utility companies when there is a neighborhood upgrade. If they're going to come in and and build, if you look along Fairmount, there are a number of new homes that have been built on Fairmount. Certainly, when you're replacing a 3-bedroom split with a 5-bedroom center hall colonial with all the electronic bells and whistles, that's going to create additional tax on the delivery. It really is up to the developer to call the power company. If a homeowner senses that there is a problem in their home, they get on the phone and call. And if it does require a neighborhood upgrade, it can be done. It absolutely can be done.
I don't disagree with you. I guess you and I are going to disagree on how we advocate for residents. So I'm advocating
Residents are clients
that
of
we
the power company.
join
Residents
together
are
as a
supposed to
committee
call the power company.
and work potentially in concert with other towns that are already pursuing this and look to leverage that power as a governmental authority to ask for better service.
If a resident can't
Yeah.
pick up the phone and call the 800 number and say, I'm experiencing regular outages, I really think that the resident is the one ultimately responsible.
We can differ on that. This is a goal.
Well,
Yeah.
It's what you think your
The
town is
power
supposed to do.
outages in the community are absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
Yes.
I've heard time and again from residents, nowhere has anybody lived anywhere else and had power outages. In this community, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so they need to be held to task. It's not a goals and objectives, but I think they should be here every month, where they should provide you, I know you're the liaison, provide you the reporting every single month. What were the outages? What was the cause? What are they going to do to address those types of outages going forward? Because it's ridiculous, and it's not going to get fixed unless we hold them to task.
I actually,
If I may, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, I think what's being suggested is to join with other municipalities, to contact the Board of Public Utilities, who is the entity that regulates utilities, and by presenting a unified front to the Board of Public Utilities that there are specific issues that need to be addressed, not just in Chatham Township, but in surrounding municipalities. That, I think, is the approach that I think you're trying to get at.
I think that's a good suggestion.
It's because ultimately, it's the Board of Public Utilities that regulates them. And this may not be the best example, but 15 years or so ago, there was a cable company by the name of Patriot that was providing very poor service. And municipalities got together and they approached the Board of Public Utilities, and the Board of Public Utilities took many steps to try to get Patriot to provide better service, and eventually Patriot sold to Comcast. But I think that's what you're suggesting. It's an individual municipality going to a public utility probably won't have that much success, but doing it as a whole with other municipalities and approaching the board, that's really your best leverage.
Thank you.
And the board does have very good staff that is very helpful in these areas. But that's not to say you can't ask them to come in and give the reports and give you updates. But you're not going to be able to regulate them. That's done by the Board of Public Utilities.
Okay, thank you, Alan. And the final goal here, to
Oh,
ensure...
can we discuss the word require residents to
Yeah.
sign up for our emergency alert system?
Yeah,
I really don't think we can require.
I don't think require. And I'd be interested in exploring whether you could have an opt-out type of an approach instead of an opt-in, but I don't think we can require.
When there's isn't there a reverse 911, so if there's something huge, everybody gets alerted either way. So, yeah, I agree, we take out require, because I think it's a standard we can't enforce.
You can't force them to sign up for it,
Yeah.
right? Go door to door.
I have something to add to the emergency services thing.
Which is that one? Celeste?
Well, the one
Oh,
we're
the-
just discussing.
This would be A, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking that, I noticed that a lot of people don't have visible, house numbers. And it's not easy when you're on the emergency squad to find those places. So I don't know if you can require people to have numbers.
Yes, you can. There are ordinances that can require numbering of all houses, size of the number. I don't recall whether you have such an ordinance, but it's not unusual for a municipality to require numbering for that very same purpose of public safety. The emergency services have to know where to go without guessing.
Yeah.
So that's something you may want to consider as adopting an ordinance that requires that. And that may be more government regulation than you may want, but there's a balance there between public safety and government regulation.
It's worth a look. And final goal, ensure that the township is a great place to work and that we are staffed to appropriately meet needs. A, assess staffing needs and right sizing. B, explore both full and part-time and contract employees to help achieve goals. Review salary structures so that we are competitive with other towns. Provide growth and learning opportunities. Ensure that department heads participate in annual planning and budget processes. And conduct a review of our professional service contracts on a rolling 3-year basis. I think it's certainly to appreciate and to grow the strengths of our staff is certainly a desirable thing to do.
For letter F, the 3-year rolling basis, we have to approve our professional services each year. It would be nice if there was some annual kind of reporting to let us know, and I assume that would be in, a private session, but just to let us know how everybody's doing. So even though we might review a contract every 3 years, every year we should get an update on how things are going.
Yeah.
And what the costs are for each services
Yeah,
that year,
yeah.
because it varies.
Yeah.
Well, I think that happens. I mean, I think if you're talking about a professional working with any of our boards or for us, I think that if there's something on any given year that falls short, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't either talk to that person or talk among ourselves about taking action. I think we did just adopt a bylaw that set up the 3-year rotating to do to formalize it so that it didn't fall between the cracks. I guess I see it as a 2-tiered kind of a process, that on an annual basis, and maybe this is what you were saying, on an annual basis, be aware, but on a 3-year basis to really consciously do it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think you raise a good point in that at any given time, depending on what's going on in the township, that we could have professional services contracts that were supposed to be at X, but we had an increase in review of development or zoning or lawsuits or other things that are going to require a lot more money from that contract. And I think that it's probably a good idea to have them give an annual report to the committee.
No.
No?
Well, what I was just going to say is that the Township Committee at the end of 2019, the outgoing mayor and the deputy mayor, they received a review from me of our professional services, of the people that did provide professional, provide services to us. And, that was the first step towards an evaluation process for it. And then, we should have our professionals, they should know that on a 3-year basis, they will have to go through a formal process. if there's, but every year they get reappointed by the township committee, just like right now, but there'll be a more in-depth evaluation every 3 years.
And we'll apportion it so that we do X type of services one year, it won't be all at once.
Correct.
And planning services another year, and financial services another year, and those will go out for requests for proposals, and then come back in so that we can possibly save costs on those contracts, or reevaluate the services, or even expand the services that they provide.
Well, it's all of the above, but it's not, it's to make sure that we're getting good value. So it's not just reducing costs, it's making sure that we get the best possible value and the advice that we need.
The next thing on our agenda is comments from the public, but is anything else on this one before we?
Yeah, I had kind of another category, I don't know if it falls under something, but and we touched on some of them, but building relationships where we can advocate for the township. So that might be, or formalizing relationships where we can advocate for the township. So that might be building a liaison role to the freeholders, so that when we have county, initiatives where we have to coordinate the county, that's more formalized outreach. Bob and I had talked about for our Congresswoman, if we coordinate better with the office, perhaps she has hours here. We have the folks from our office come and speak. There was a gentleman from our office that came to the senior advisory committee meeting today and was very helpful in terms of explaining how their office supports our seniors. And people really appreciated that. So, in some respects, it's where they can, access the community, our community can access them, but it's also advocating for the township. So certainly with our state legislators as well. Bob and I had talked about that there could be things, if we want to be in a position to better negotiate contracts for services or for supplies, but right now there might be legislation that blocks our ability to better coordinate and get a better deal. So thinking about, by establishing those relationships or strengthening those relationships, formalizing, I should say, that hopefully it gets us to come up with some solutions or cost-saving measures or getting things done more efficiently. And then Bob had talked about also coordinating with other administrators, whether it's mayors in neighboring towns, our neighboring committee people. So I don't know what that gets captured under, but I think where we can improve on leveraging our relationships with all these different bodies would be helpful.
One of the other things that we'd also, Committeewoman Ewald and I had talked about is that there are services that the county clerk provides. So maybe it's, maybe they would be able to come to our senior center so that it's, it's if there's photo IDs there's something that the clerks provide the county clerks provide for veteran services, things of that nature that we should be on their schedule of visits and
That's a great idea,
yeah,
and
so-
I know that she would be delighted to come. We're actually working on arranging a meeting with our senior center with our newly elected county surrogate as well. Since the surrogate was in place in Morris County for decades, we now have a new surrogate at the helm in terms of estates, guardianship, things along those lines.
Yeah, that
So
would-
she will be coming in as soon as we can finalize a date with that too.
that, and then there are things that are, similar to that. There are things that our residents it would be beneficial if our state elected officials were able to have, come in and instead of having our residents go there, have our state representatives come here and talk to our citizens. So that,
Certainly would endorse that. I made a point of getting to the reorganizations for both Madison and Chatham Borough, and I've been in communication with the new mayor of Chatham Borough several times, and in fact, we had a meeting just this morning, as well as a representative of the Madison Borough Council, so I definitely, that's a goal of mine as well.
So then how do we turn that into a goal? Expand?
build better relationships where we can advocate for the township as a goal, and as objectives, consider establishing a liaison with the freeholders, encourage visits by Congress members and state representatives, build relationships with surrounding mayors and administrators, and build relationships and visits with county officials and resources such as the surrogate and county clerk.
I am certainly happy to take that on until a position can be formally drafted up. If anybody has any communications needs with our county officers, such as Ann Grassi or Heather Darling or the Board of Chosen Freeholders, certainly I have warm relationships with all of them until something more formal can be drawn up. If anybody has any issues that need to be brought up to them directly, I'm always in contact with them, and I see them socially on regular occasions too. So if there's anything that's specifically on your mind, I'm certainly more than happy to bring it up.
Okay. Yeah, I think that there could be obvious, people can help with different aspects of that. Certainly some of these should be a mayor's job, and some of them should be the administrator's job. No. And, you know, but yes, I think that there are some people with strengths that can do different parts of that.
And we used to have, the freeholders used to do a kind of a floating meeting too. So we
Yeah, they
could
were here a
invite
couple years
the,
ago. You're right.
The freeholders, it would be nice to have the freeholders here. Sometimes we get a little bit of a short shrift, being where we're located. And especially with regards to some of the traffic issues that we have. I know that for the past 2 years, again, using a regional kind of a bunch of towns gathering together, a bunch of mayors, there were about, I think, 10 towns in the past 2 years have had annual meetings with the freeholders asking for a regional approach to traffic management, and we haven't gotten anywhere with that. So that's something that we can look into.
Very good.
In fact, I was just talking to the mayor of Madison and the mayor of Morris Township about this, about getting this back up again and making this request again to try and deal with our regional traffic issues. So
I believe they're still doing the floating meetings. I was at a clerk's meeting last year where that topic came up, and with the number of municipalities that we have in Morris County, which is close to 40, you know, they try to spread it around and let everyone have their turn. So eventually they probably will be back here, hopefully.
Cyclical.
well,
Yes.
hopefully we can reach out and see when they're going to do that.
Okay. Anyone else? I think a
Miss-
couple-
Mr. Mayor, I had two other items that I was just backtracking and looking at. There have been discussion last summer and then towards the end of the year about a location for a veterans park. Is that something that we should be looking at? And then also adopt a park, looking at some easements, and I think we had 11 or 19 locations. So is
Would that go under what goal?
We did have open space and
Recreation?
Recreation. Where are we?
We had mentioned the idea of adopt a park twice last year. I don't know whether you here at Town Hall has received any feedback from somebody who would be inclined to adopt a park. I received one. The Senior Center of the Chathams definitely wanted to adopt a park, but that was that. I didn't hear from any scout packs or any businesses or anything else. So I don't know whether maybe we just lack publicity or.
Well, I don't think I agree, I don't think we publicized it, we just did a dry run. There were probably 3 or 4 contractors that had expressed an interest if we were going to formally do it, but we didn't publish the location. So if that's something that we want to do, we would need to publicize it and ask who's interested and
Would we
follow
need
through.
to adopt some sort of resolution or ordinance? Because I don't recall ever discussing that. that we would, you know, what it would entail, how the cost mechanism would work, where we take the funds in, what they would be actually responsible for. Is there a legal issue or a safety issue if somebody maintains a park?
Valid questions. There's answers to those. The first step is there a willingness to do that? Then I would write up a memo about that. There are some liability issues. There are things that they would have to agree to. The township is not outlaying any money. We are looking at space that somebody would come, they would adopt the park, they would maintain it, they would do plantings, they would receive a sign that says this is being maintained by whoever. If there's they would have to agree if there's line of sight issues that they can't plant something that's too high, but you know, this has been done in other communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that it could very well be worth exploring, but maybe as a project implementing it doesn't raise to the level of a goal, that it could be one of many understood initiatives that could fall in under the recreation and an open space kind of initiatives. So I'd say, I think we've got a plate full here already. So I would say that's.
I think maybe adopt a park could take a bit of a back seat, but I really would like to see somehow moving forward on a Veterans Memorial. I really think that it is probably long overdue for a township like ours, which is so multi-generational, to have a place that can be dedicated to recognizing the bravery and the dedication of those who have served our country in war and in peace and who have worn the uniform of our armed forces. I've spoken with John, just really casual conversations about places to locate it. I don't know whether any of you have any thoughts about where to locate it. My personal thought was on the neck of land that separates Castle Park from the auxiliary parking lots, since so many people do park in those auxiliary parking lots, and people do cut through the woods there rather than walk out onto Shunpike, and to have a sort of a rest area with benches and flags and the seals of our armed forces, the various branches of our armed forces, to be there, whether it could be recognizing those who have served or make it a memorial park for those who lost their lives, but also fund it through buying of bricks. And I am not an expert at funding things that involve buying of bricks, but I think that would be the right place to start if we had a place to start.
I think our 9/11 memorial is lovely.
And nobody even knows it's here.
And, yeah, and we have I think it's a World War I or World War II memorial stone at Southern Boulevard.
And you'd never see anybody there.
The school actually incorporates
Right.
it.
Greenville.
That's it. And it's not in a place where people
and
would stroll and sit and
we
observe
have-
and reflect. And
We
And I-
have the Green Village ceremony every year out at their memorial. And so I think the 9/11 memorial would be a wonderful spot. It's got a pond, it's got existing seating, it's got a lovely
yeah,
fountain, and
but it's in
we
the
can
farthest
make
corner
use
of the
of-
township and least trafficked area. So my feeling is to put it in a well-trafficked place where people will come upon it on a regular basis and take the opportunity on a regular basis to stop and pass by and say, isn't this a great place for it? When you look at other towns, it's in the center of town. We don't have a center of town, but we certainly do have a focal point in our playing fields. So to me, I mean, that's a place, someplace where it is a focal place where people traditionally pass through and pass by. And with all due respect to the beautiful 9/11 memorial, I think it's lovely. But I can't imagine if you see a lot of people out there on a regular basis reflecting. Not really, no.
I think Chatham Burrows is up at the intersection of the light. and other towns incorporated into a gazebo, a community gazebo, community park setting.
Chatham Borough has one at the light at Rotary Park.
Right.
And also right in front of the library. So the visibility of it is without
I
question.
think if we could combine it with the park, I think it'd be lovely.
Right.
Do a dual purpose, bring back our gazebo and space for the community to gather and have a recognition for those who lost their lives in Chatham.
The halfway down the second page, it's specifically recreational facilities, manage, maintain, and improve our recreational facilities, but it does also already mention repair tennis courts and the gazebo, but maybe we add a G to, explore.
Explore a park and
explore site.
veteran memorial.
Yeah. And community focal point type of a.
Okay,
Okay.
anything else, Bob?
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other goals?
We had two people who sat patiently through all of that, but
And they
I was-
left.
And then they left.
Yeah, I was going to just open it up for public comment, and
Tom,
Tom?
anything to say?
I do, and I was gonna let them go first.
They did go out the door.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I think I know that drill on that, yes. Tom Salvis, 12 Lisa Drive, Chatham Township. I just wanted to amplify some statements that Stacy did make today. I also attended this first formative meeting of what the borough established in October as a Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. Len Resto, Barbara Montague, John Kraut-Hamill, and Joyce Martinson were initially selected to get the ball rolling on that. John, Barbara, and Joyce are also trustees of the Senior Center, as we know. And of course, Len Resto, back in October, didn't realize that he was going to be named to replace Thad's role on the Borough Council. So Len did a marvelous job, I thought, today of organizing and facilitating just a little bit of a discussion. And we had, I would say, about 22 people who showed up, including Police Chief Gibbons from the borough, and other people, a representative from the Westfield Board of Health, Education, who's also a member of the Mayor's Wellness Committee. So it was a nice collection of folks. Many of us drifted into the senior category, but Len put up on the board some topics that he did want to address, and he wanted to keep it to an hour. So first I want to address the question of, because I noticed in the statements here, an idea of possibly establishing a township senior citizens advisory committee. I sat next to John, and I was talking with him, and John is a township resident. He actually thought that, and Len concurred, that originally the idea was that, yes, while they in the borough established this advisory committee, much as they did the Mayor's Wellness Advisory Committee of the Chathams, of which I have been a township member of for 10 years. They thought this should be open to residents, not just from the borough, but from Township, Madison as well, and maybe some other surrounding communities. Because I think their objectives were to try to find ways to become a voice of the growing senior population in the Chathams. Approximately, I think it was mentioned today, 30% of township residents are now into the senior category. That's likely to grow. So this represents a very substantial component of our town. And Julie Reich actually was there as well, director of the senior center downstairs. And early on, I know there was a little bit of concern about, what was this advisory committee going to do? Were they going to butt heads with the senior leadership, start to demand certain programs? No, it's not about that. I think what it's about is finding a way ways to engage and find out from the senior community issues that they are facing, and to become a voice to maybe communicate those issues and ideas and suggestions to the respective borough and township governments. That's it at the moment. So what John did is Len put up on the board the categories of topics that he is asking all of us who attended today to email him, and he will prepare some feedback, and the next meeting will be in a month. It's going to be the third Thursday of each month. So in February the 20th, I believe it is. We'll convene again and kind of go over that, and he also wanted people to suggest what subcommittees, based on those categories of interest, each of us might want to work on. And those categories ranged from transportation, safety, in-home help, communications, technology, medical questions. The chief talked a lot about Operation Reassurance, which is a program we have in the township as well. He talked about that, and he also talked a lot, they talked a lot about communications. And yes, the utilization of the TV channels was mentioned, and also the newsletters that go out. Karen Brodsky was there from the library, and they publish a newsletter. The Senior Center publishes a monthly newsletter. The borough publishes paperwork about what's going on. They suggested that seniors who may not be technically savvy, would perhaps welcome more written, mailed communications, and also, yes, greater utilization of the channels to promote events and things that are happening across the board. So I know there's going to be more discussion in this advisory committee about that, but I think the important takeaway is, at least a few of us felt that we don't really need, and I really firmly believe this, we don't need to establish our own township advisory committee. I think just like we've been able to work collaboratively with the Mayor's Wellness Committee, which quite honestly has only seen me and maybe one or two other township people participate over the last 10 years, I think that as people want to join from the township, they'd be welcome to join. I think the questions that will be entertained, the problems, the issues that will be raised by our collective borough and townships senior citizens are going to apply across the board, across the town boundaries. So I think that we should let this thing get going for about a month or so, see the kind of formation, the kinds of activities, the subcommittees that will be formed, and then I can report back. Stacy, if she continues to attend, she can report back, and Stacy has also attended the first Mayor's Wellness Committee, of which she is now a committee liaison to. And that's great, because not since the days of Nicole Hagner, when she attended one meeting and found that because of her professional work she couldn't attend, she asked me to attend, and I stayed with it. So that's great. If we can establish this, a formal liaison and a citizen liaison to that committee in the borough, then I think very good things will come of it. So that's a long-winded summary, but I just wanted to kind of clarify that. I thought it was a great meeting, and the talent that was represented in that room and the interests that were represented in that room were really great. So,
I have to, echo what you said. I thought it was a wonderful meeting. More importantly, I think the residents thought it was a wonderful meeting. I thought they got a lot of value out of it. It was interesting because Len had asked them to kind of give some information on some priorities that they had, and I was fascinated where we thought that maybe transportation would be a hot topic, which it still is, but it wasn't one that came up, or emergency preparedness, safety issues even. The hot topics were communications, physical obstacles.
Physical or fiscal?
Physical
Physical?
obstacles. So where they had difficulty at night, on roads that were very dark, and they, if you're turning a corner and somebody's wearing dark clothing, being sensitive to, they want to be able to drive safely. So it was very eye-opening to see things from a different perspective, and I think it's wonderful to have that representation. And I don't think we need to build something new. I think we could figure out, especially because we have a shared senior center, we have the shared library, so, you know, we're already sharing a lot of resources, so I think it'd be great. I know it says create one, but I think where we can build off of what already is out there.
I would say, let's see how it goes and starts. And I thought it was great that Karen Brodsky of the library was there, and that Julie Reich from the senior center was there, and John Krauthamel, who has done a lot of good legwork on this. I know he came and he spoke here and you know, entertained the idea of that. And I don't think Julie downstairs views the formation of this committee as any threat to the programs and the good work that they do. In fact, I think we can all work together for the betterment of all of our institutions and just engaging people. Because obviously, as people are aging, and we're having an increasingly aging population here, if we don't move away, you know, there are needs, and there's a reluctance to do certain things, and, you know, people want to know where they can go, where they can, you know, register their concerns or whatever, and that's not entirely a mission of downstairs. Downstairs is very program-oriented, but to have a place or a group that can kind of collect and engage and get that feedback from these folks, I think is going to be extremely valuable. And it will be, and this is happening in other communities, in other counties. This is not, you know, very, very new, but it's kind of new in this community. So I think there are good things ahead, and we'll keep reporting. Okay.
And I'm happy to continue on and informally as a liaison, similar to what you had mentioned, until we can formalize, you know, whose role it is, or.
Well, I think one of the things that's going to be important.
With your schedule, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
If the meetings do, I think it'd be great.
I think that one of the things that's going to be important, because John did come before us with a proposal to create a senior advisory committee, and it was met by some with some interest and others with no interest. So they went ahead and formed the committee in the borough. That's kind of where that netted out. I think it's extraordinarily important to include residents, seniors in the communications and in the planning and in the structure that we put together for the township. And I would, you know, maybe, Mike, you can reach out with Thad and see if we can make it a joint committee, like we have a joint recreation committee, because we would certainly want some of our township members not just to be attending the meeting, but to be on the committee. So if we had, like we do with the recreation committee, we have 3 members from the township, we have 3 members from the borough, and the chair of the committee rotates every 2 years. So maybe we can look at expanding it that way, not recreating the wheel, but doing this, because they have had, and I don't think that was their first meeting. I think they had a meeting prior to that.
I think the four folks that I mentioned did meet.
Because they had a representative from Mikey Sherrill's office come in and provide them with a contact for veterans benefits and Medicare and Medicaid benefits, which I also found very interesting. Because there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of that committee. So I think we might want to explore.
As I say, let's see what the February meeting brings, and then we can report back, and we'll see how it goes. And meanwhile, I can Len was looking for ideas. So what you're saying is good forward-thinking ideas too. Oh, let me just mention, as a veteran, Captain Salvis, you may recall that Captain Kevin Sullivan and I were tasked a couple of years ago by Mayor Ritter to explore the idea of a Veterans Memorial. We did some initial legwork. Kevin apologized that he didn't, before he left the committee, he didn't take it more forward. One of the areas that we seriously did consider was that area between the parking at Castle Park and the church. That little bit of either township-owned or some open space or whatever, we looked at that as a real possibility. There was some concern that, yes, Green Village does have its Memorial Day, Veterans Day ceremonies. Many of us always attend that. That's fine. But I would tend to agree, it would be great if we had something that is in township, the main part of the township. And we just thought that the Shunpike Field area would be very acceptive as a location with the parking, for the various ceremonies or whatever. So I would be interested to participate if that idea wants to go forward even more in the future, so,
Be great, Captain.
yeah.
We'll sign you up.
Well, thank you, thank you. And you know what, Captain Sullivan, if you're watching, and he may well be, let's get back on board, and we'll make this happen. We've got a lot of veterans in the township.
And then what I like about the idea of having that park be an area is how many grandparents are there watching their kids' sporting
Good point,
activities.
excellent.
The place is crawling with grandparents, and I know from raising my kids, there are grandparents everywhere, and they're the ones who really, I think, need to be remembered.
Yeah, gets a lot of visibility, and Mr. Ritter had presented a design concept initially after we had all talked, but it was not between the parking lot and the church. It was more wedged between a portion of the parking lot and the basketball court. And we didn't talk a lot about it, but Kevin and I thought that's a little bit restrictive, kind of crowded in there. So I think a separate and apart could be a workable location. And on that note, thank you.
Thank you for that report, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And Stacy, if we could take you up on that offer too, that would be great. That's something to pursue. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And I think that kind of brings us to the point of looking ahead now. Bob, if I understand what you're looking for from this whole exercise is for us to kind of incorporate the things that were said here tonight and maybe polish this list of goals and objectives a bit. And then you were looking for some kind of an action on the meeting of the 30th so that we could move forward on starting to implement some of these and assigning priorities, and you would work them into your thoughts?
Yes, we would work them into the budget. That's what I would like. What I would like to offer is that I'll take this information and work with a member of the Township Committee to polish this up, but I'd also like to take a look at it and then to sit with some of our department heads and professionals and provide some prioritization for some of the goals, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and get that back out to the Township Committee.
Now, Bob, you had distributed when we tried to do this last year, the memo on the 14th, which was not goals. They were, it was part of the goal process, but these were actual actions. Because to adopt the goals is going to be kind of a framework going forward. So there's not a lot in here that's necessarily prioritized, because really a lot of them would be prioritized. It's conducting assessments, it's looking at, financials, it's doing all of those kinds of things. Is it something that would be better if we provided up and under that actual budget items? Because there really aren't budget items necessarily in this. It's a framework of how we're going to work going forward. So what would be more helpful? Because I have a whole list of budgetary items, let's say, that would fall up underneath this.
We're trying to use the goals to help drive the budget. So we want to make sure that the priorities of the Township Committee are addressed in the 2021 budget, and then the capital plan and the capital budgets going forward. So I don't completely follow your question about the budget. You said you had budget.
Yeah, we talked about, as part of this kind of goal, this document that you had aggregated with goals, some of them are specific projects. Like redo the tennis courts or fix the tennis courts. And some of them are larger, which is look at the infrastructure, all of our recreational infrastructure, and come up with a plan to maintain and or improve them. So they're two different things. One is our courts are in terrible condition. It's been on the list for 4 years. we need to bite the bullet and fix them. And the other is, we need to conduct a fulsome look at all of our recreational facilities and say, okay, this field down here, which has now become non-operational because it's just not been maintained, do we want to bring that back online? In 2 years, do we need to replace the turf? Do we need to address the drainage at Esternay? So they're kind of I see them as two different things. One is an action item for next year's budget, and the other is something that looks forward and looks at planning so that we can pay for it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to take a look at what we've agreed to tonight, or what there's a consensus for tonight, and talk with our Director of Public Works and our engineer, and then come back to the township. I think you and I are talking about the same thing. I just wanted to take a crack at it first and bring it back to the township committee.
Yeah.
And then have those two plus our CFO look at it, and then we'll see what we believe is doable for this year, and then what we need to plan for in the future, and then how do we deploy some of our hours for the projects that we're already working on, like, you know, looking at our sewer easements and things of that nature.
And you're right, because some of these come with costs attached to it. The master plan comes with a cost attached to it, depending on how rigorous we want to be with that master plan review, the conducting an assessment of all of the easements, conducting an assessment of, you know, that it comes with budget dollars attached to those.
Yeah, so what I would like to do is I want to take a look at that. I want to take a pass with some of our department heads and professionals, and then I want to come back to the township committee with that.
Okay, do you see that as being doable for the meeting of the 30th, or do you think you
Yeah.
need more time? 30th? Okay, sounds good.
Are you gonna post in the meantime in rough draft form, so residents can look and then provide input? Or do you want it, or do you prefer to work on it for a little bit?
I'd prefer to work on it for a little bit, because
Okay.
then it becomes a moving target, so I prefer to work on it, give it back to the township committee, and then, you know, then we can post it after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Closed session.
Thank you very much. I think we've reached the end of our agenda. We need for a closed session. Greg, could you read the resolution?
Yes, Resolution 2020-P-02, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded, whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Litigation, Christopher and Ashley Felice versus Township of Chatham, docket number MRS-L-002717-19. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion, and in any event when appropriate pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13, the committee will come back into a regular session and may take further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately. We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Greg?
Okay, Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mrs. Fandacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ness?
Yes.
And Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Motion passes.